Welcome to another edition of Daily Airline News, focusing on the tragic loss of Air India Flight 171. I'm Geoffrey Thomas, and I'm delighted to say, joined by my co-host, Richard Godfrey in Frankfurt, Germany. Good morning to you, Richard.
And good afternoon to you, Geoffrey, in Perth, Australia.
Well, it's a better afternoon this afternoon because yesterday afternoon we had a tornado touch down only about a mile and a half from our home. So it's a small tornado, not like an American tornado, but it ripped some roofs off and did some damage. So a bit of excitement. Uh,
Yeah, well, you don't want to take a small dog for a walk in that then, do you?
no, you don't. You don't. So, viewers, today we're going to have a deep dive into the 787. In the wake of the tragic loss of Air India flight AI 171, many viewers have questioning the 787 and more broadly Boeing, particularly after the saturation media coverage of the terrible MAX crashes. The MAX crashes are another story, which we will cover soon, but I can tell you there is so much misinformation about those crashes that when the truth emerges, it's barely recognisable. But let me just give you one piece. The New York Times wrote that the design had been rushed, and that fact, or that fiction I should say, became fact. The reality is that it was the slowest upgrade of any Boeing jet at just over 6 years and took longer than the building and certification of the 747, which was just over 3.5 years. However, as I said, we'll get back to the MAX in another episode. In this episode on the 787, we'll look at how it's built, at the incidents and the ADs. Richard, the 787 is quite a revolutionary long-haul aircraft with advanced materials and systems, but it's had a number of serious technical and operational issues since its first commercial flight in 2011. While the 787 has become a mainstay in many airline fleets due to its fuel efficiency and passenger comfort, it has also encountered, as I've said, some incidents and regulatory scrutiny that have shaped its development and operational history. So, Richard, let's look at its major issues. The first one, and probably the most serious, was the lithium-ion battery fires of 2013. They occurred shortly after its entry. The Dreamliner was the first commercial airliner to use large lithium cobalt oxide batteries for its APU and main battery systems. Richard, perhaps you can run us through that.
Yeah, so there were two significant battery incidents in January 2013. The first was a Japan Airlines 787 at Boston Logan Airport on the 7th of January. And after landing, a battery fire in the APU compartment led to smoke in the cabin. And firefighters had to force entry to extinguish the fire, which caused substantial damage to the battery enclosure. And then on the 16th of January 2013, a ANA All Nippon Airways emergency landing took place. 787 was forced to make a landing in Japan after the flight crew received warnings of smoke and battery overheating. Inspection revealed a thermal runaway and charring of the main battery. The root cause was identified as thermal runaway in the lithium ion battery packs, which could be triggered by an internal short circuit, overcharging, or manufacturing defects. The NTSB, the National Transportation Safety Board in the US, investigated and criticized Boeing's battery testing and risk assessment processes and noted insufficient thermal containment in the battery design. And the FAA grounded all Boeing 787s worldwide on the 16th of January 2013. So Boeing redesigned the battery enclosure to include stainless steel containment, insulation, and venting systems to prevent fires from spreading. The aircraft returned to service in April 2013 after extensive FAA review and approval of the redesign.
And just for the record, that battery is an amazing battery. It's actually a French-Japanese design. It's not actually designed by Boeing or built by Boeing. It's one of their suppliers. So next we had the engine reliability concerns. The 787 uses two types of engines, the Rolls-Royce Trent 1000 and the GE/GEnx. Both have had operational issues, though the Trent 1000 experienced the more serious and prolonged problems. Richard, can you walk us through those issues?
Yeah, but they started in 2016 and went through to 2020. And in 2016, operators began reporting premature wear and cracking of intermediate pressure turbine blades and corrosion in intermediate pressure compressor blades in the Trent 1000 engines. The IPT, as it's called, the intermediate pressure turbine, were prone to sulfidation corrosion and fatigue cracking, particularly in high humidity or marine environments. In-service inspection intervals had to be shortened drastically. In 2018, additional issues were found in the Trent 1000, the 10 version, an upgrade variant, raising concerns about the entire engine family. Numerous 787s were grounded worldwide due to engine inspections, lack of spare engines, or waiting on repairs. And Rolls-Royce initiated multiple redesigns of affected components, including new blade materials and configurations.
But GE was also in the news, was it not, Richard?
Yeah, GE didn't escape either. The GEnx had a fan shaft issue. While not as widespread as the Trent problems, the GEnx engines also experience this notable problem. And 2012 incident involving a GNX on a 787 during ground tests resulted in engine failure due to an ice crystal induced fan midshaft fracture. The GE redesigned components, introduced software modifications to improve engine performance in high altitude ice crystal environments.
The biggest issue, and more recent, was the quality control and manufacturing issues which plagued Boeing from 2019 to 2022. In 2019, a series of quality control lapses at Boeing's Charleston, South Carolina 787 assembly plant came under scrutiny, I should say. Richard, can you give us a bit of a rundown of what happened there?
Yeah, so in August 2020, Boeing reported structural flaws in the aft fuselage sections. There were gaps between fuselage barrels, as they're called, when they're assembled using composite barrel sections. They were outside the allowable tolerances. And additionally, shimming materials used to fill gaps were either missing or improperly installed. And these problems were outside Boeing's design tolerances and could potentially compromise the long-term fatigue strength of the fuselage. Additional effects included improperly clamped horizontal stabilizer components in the tail that could reduce control authority, and incorrectly installed cockpit windows and electrical connections raised concerns about the durability and the safety of the aircraft. The FAA mandated inspections of the affected aircraft and halted 787 deliveries in October 2020. and deliveries resumed briefly in March 2021, but were suspended again. And in May 2021, due to continued concerns, so it was a long ongoing saga.
Mm.
Boeing implemented revised inspection and repair procedures, and deliveries resumed in August 2022. And gratefully and thankfully, there have been no problems since.
Yes, and they're now ramping up production to meet demand, which I think there's almost 1,000 of these aircraft to be built to go with the 1,100 that are in service, and airlines are clamoring for them. But there's also been, Richard, a few notable incidents as well. Perhaps you can walk us through
Yeah.
those.
On top of what we've already discussed, there was in late 2012 some 787s that experienced fuel leaks, and that was caused by improper installation of fuel line connectors. The FAA issued an airworthiness directive, an AD, requiring inspections and corrective actions. And in 2021, there was an autopilot disengagement. And Boeing reported a software bug causing autopilot disengagement under specific conditions during approach. And this prompted a service bulletin and guidance to operators until a fix was implemented. And we also have an engine rollback issue, which we've discussed at length with the All Nippon Airways ANA flight, and we've covered that.
So, an interesting guide to safety or otherwise of the 787 and its design are the airworthiness directives issued by the US Federal Aviation Authority. Now, just to mention here, um, when the US FAA issues an airworthiness directive, that's basically to US operators, but every authority around the world takes it up as it so it becomes really a global AD. So, Richard, you've got some numbers on these.
Yeah, that's correct. The FAA are the certifiers of the aircraft when it's built by Boeing in the US, but they immediately put it out to every other regulator in the world.
Mm,
And since 2011, there have been 86 ADs issued for the 787. That may seem like quite a large number, but for example, for the 747 over its lifetime, there were 577. So things appear to be improving and quite considerably. Possibly a better comparison is with the Boeing 777-300ER model, which has 99 ADs issued on it.
but what about total serious incidents, Richard? How do those numbers stack up?
Yeah, so the Aviation Safety Network database is the one we use, and for the 787 has 39 incidents recorded, and the 777-300ER has 34 incidents, so they're roughly the same.
Mm,
And the 747 over its lifetime, and we have to go back to 1970, has had 286 incidents, and unfortunately, many of those were fatal.
mm,
Of course, you have to balance these figures by the number of flights per day. So the 787 does over 2,100 flights per day and has a dispatch reliability of over 99%. So by comparison, the Boeing 777 operates 2,470 flights per day. And when you look at Airbus, the shorter range Airbus A330 does 2,900 flights per day. And the A350, which is a direct competitor to the 787 and the 777, does 1,650 flights per day.
mm. Yeah, that's some big numbers. Richard, there's also been concerns about the FAA's oversight and self-certification process for the 787. However, what is not realised is that it was the US Congress that put that process in place because it wouldn't fund the FAA to the level needed to employ the people to do the full certification. Now, this program allows Boeing engineers to act on behalf of the FAA, which is actually a widespread policy throughout the aviation industry in actual fact, because regulators quite often don't have the expertise that the actual aircraft manufacturers have. So overall, the issue has been that Boeing was designing a radically new aircraft with amazing economics and capability, but outsourcing to a greater extent than ever before. Now, all manufacturers outsource. Airbus and Boeing don't build engines, they don't build avionics, they don't build undercarriages, they don't build galleys, seats, windows, air conditioning systems. They design aircraft, then put all the parts together. Um, so, Richard, can you run us through the major suppliers to the 787?
Yeah, but you better strap in because it's a long list.
Oh,
Um, so, Mitsubishi Heavy Industries, MHI, is one of the most critical partners in the 787 program, and they are responsible for producing the entire composite wing box, including the center wing section, and that's the structural core of the aircraft's wings. The wing is made primarily of carbon fiber, reinforced plastic, CFRP, and MHI also produces the wing spars and installs key systems like the wing anti-ice system. And then Kawasaki Heavy Industries in Japan builds the forward fuselage of the 787, include the nose section and the cockpit structure. The large composite piece integrates key systems such as avionics and cockpit controls and windows. And Kawasaki's role also includes manufacturing the fixed trailing edge of the wing and providing critical sub-assemblies for other sections. And then Fuji Heavy Industries, now the Subaru Corporation, produces the center wing box integration structure, which connects the main wings to the fuselage and handles enormous structural loads during flight. Fuji also manufactures the landing gear bay and handles the integration of multiple wing-related systems. So Japan's aerospace industry, MHI, Kawasaki, and Fuji collectively build about 35% of the 787 airframe content, the largest share outside of the United States. Then Alenia Aeronautica in Italy looks after the horizontal stabilizer and the rear fuselage. The horizontal stabilizer is produced in Foggia in Italy. And then Spirit Aerosystems, based in Wichita, Kansas, is one of Boeing's largest suppliers and provides the entire forward fuselage called Section 41, including the cockpit, the radome, the nose landing gear assembly, as well as engine nacelles and pylons, and both engine types, the GEnx and the Trent 1000. Spirit delivers the forward fuselage as a complete wired and tested assembly. And then Vought Aircraft Industries in the US, based in South Carolina, originally partnering with Alenia in a joint venture called Global Aeronautica, and they assembled the rear fuselage sections before delivery to Boeing. And Vought also responsible for the manufacturing of sections 47 and 48 of the aft fuselage. So you have pieces coming from all over the place and around the world. And due to production delays and quality problems, Boeing then decided to purchase Vaught's 787 operations in 2009, and they brought the whole process back in-house. Another major supplier is Messier Bugatti Doughty of France and the UK, which produces the component landing gear. Messier Bugatti Doughty is now part of the Safran landing system and supplies the 787's main and nose landing gear systems. It provides wheels, brakes, and other integration systems. And then, of course, we have Rolls-Royce and General Electric, that's GE, both in the UK and in the US, supplying engines, and Collins Aerospace supplies the electrical systems and power management. And that includes the power generation and distribution systems, the environmental control system, ECS, the power electronics and motor controllers for electrically driven systems, replacing the traditional bleed air systems. And Thales in France is responsible for the integrated modular avionic and flight deck displays. And that includes the IMA suite, the flight management, surveillance, and control systems. Large LCD cockpit displays are developed by Rockwell Collins, now part of Collins Aerospace. So, long list.
That's quite a list. And just segueing back to the Voight discussion or the Voight comment, I was part of a special group of industry media back in 2005. And we were guests of Boeing, and they flew us around the world in a chartered VIP jet, and we visited all the facilities. And the one that left us shaking our heads was the Voight one in Charleston, South Carolina. And we looked at it and we thought there's no way that you guys are going to get your stuff done in time for the rollout of this aeroplane. And indeed we were right, because the Boeing had to purchase them a few years later to get them back on track. So it was an interesting exercise, this global supply chain that Boeing put together for the 787. And interestingly enough, Richard, that's a long list of suppliers, but in actual fact, there's 535 suppliers in 19 countries and 38 states of the USA. So it really is an enormous international effort. And we should mention Airbus is very similar, with multiple suppliers across the globe. Most of their major suppliers are in Europe. Parts of Airbus aeroplanes are manufactured all over Europe and flown in to either Hamburg or Toulouse. The same with the 787. Those components are flown in on specially modified 747s called Dreamlifters, and they're flown in from Japan and Italy and South Carolina and Wichita. So it's they're massive undertakings, massive industrial undertakings.
It was the same when I was working on the NASA space shuttle and the European Space Agency's Space Lab.
Mm,
Space Lab was built by 10 different countries in Europe.
mm,
I was responsible for Switzerland and Belgium. And at times, with all of, putting bits together with German, French, Spanish, Italian, Swiss, Belgium, and what have you, um, it seemed to me it was designed more by politics than by technology,
mm,
and all kinds of national pride and conflicts going on. It was an amazing experience.
indeed. So, viewers, that's a bit of a deep dive into the 787. We hope it's answered some questions for you. We've talked about how good it is, and we've talked about some of the problems it's had. Today, it is an outstanding platform. There's no question whatsoever about that. And evidenced by the fact that more and more airlines are buying them. They're coming back for second repeat orders, third repeat orders, fourth repeat orders, and the orders are getting bigger and bigger. So it's going to be, and it continues to be, an outstanding aeroplane, and I think it'll just go on to strength, notwithstanding the tragic loss of the Air India aircraft, which we're still yet to find out precisely what happened there. So, Richard, great to chat about this one today. Viewers, thank you for tuning in. Please like us, please subscribe to us, please do keep those wonderful comments coming and keep those wonderful questions coming. They're absolutely fantastic. We love them, and you are certainly challenging us. Are they not, Richard?
Indeed, and we'll be back tomorrow with a whole bunch more viewers' questions.
We will. So please do tune in. Look forward to your company. Thank you.